This is not very helpful, is it?
Well, I mean, fundamentally, this is a sort of different take on what the recapitalization plan and what that sort of state-led bailout ultimately means for Huarong. While Moody's is kind of a little bit more cautious on what the actual implications of this capital injection mean for the firm, I think Fitch is taking a more positive view that any form of this type of kind of rare state-led bailout is some kind of form of extraordinary support.
So what do we know about this bailout so far?
Well, we don't have that many details about the bailout itself from Huarong, so investors are certainly looking for more clarity. Bloomberg reported earlier that capital injection could be about 7.7 billion, and that will certainly help to offset some of those 16 billion of projected losses that Huarong is forecasted for 2020.
So what is the assessment when you take a look at what the credit agencies have decided as to whether this potentially means a broad-based appetite for bailing out these similar companies?
I think, in the case of the rating firms, both and including sort of S&P as well, recognize that bailouts in China are increasingly rare, and bailouts of this scale and of this type as well, where we see so many SOEs linked directly to the Ministry of Finance involved in a bailout of this sort. I think for investors, particularly looking at Huarong, the key thing is whether or not it falls into junk territory. I think above that, to some extent, investors will, of course, have priced this in. They've been scrutinizing the firm so closely for 5 months now. Really, the junk kind of rating is the thing that matters. Bank of America had an interesting report out a couple of weeks ago saying that more than 50% of investors would have to actually sell their bonds if Huarong were to get downgraded into that kind of territory.
And no wonder, given that these bailouts are increasingly rare and defaults are becoming more commonplace, we continue to see the risk premium on these corporate dollar bonds in China rise.
Absolutely, that's certainly the case, and particularly in the high-yield market. I think the Huarong news did provide a bit of reprieve for the investment-grade bond market, and we saw rally there, spreading into Asian investment-grade as well. But China high-yield still continues to be pressured by this real concern about what's going to happen at Evergrande. And of course, when you consider Evergrande in the context of a Huarong bailout, these are two very different firms, and we have seen policymakers moving to really tighten leverage in the property sector and really clamp down on some of these sort of excessive borrowing tendencies that have allowed companies to develop into these sort of conglomerates that have sort of emerged over the last decade.